Good morning, everybody. We want to welcome you to today's Lightspeed Wednesday webinar. Fun topic today, or at least it could be fun. It's the year-end processes. So something we know that everybody has a lot of questions on. So we're excited to give you the opportunity to walk you through some of the best practices and tips and tricks. And before we dive right into the webinar, we'll talk a little bit about kind of how we manage the webinar. So if you want to go to the next slide, Eugene. Many of you have been on our Zoom webinars before, but encourage you anytime throughout the webinar, if you have questions, start typing in your questions. We're going to answer those as we can throughout the webinar. We'll do some live Q&A at the end. And whatever we don't get to today, we will also come back to you with a follow-up email that'll give you a recording of today's webinar, as well as a Q&A document. And next slide. One other thing that we've kind of added to is somebody today who attends our webinar is going to be the lucky winner of a $25 Amazon gift card from Lightspeed. So we'll select our winner at the end and we'll let you know who that is. And then we'll follow up with you directly to make sure we get you to we mail it to the right address and get that off to you. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker today, which is Eugene Cash.
Thank you. 1 second. I apologize. There we go. No.
No worries, and we'll let you.
Okay.
Thank you, Eugene. We're excited to have him on board. So we'll let you give a little background about yourself, Eugene, and we'll get right into our webinar.
All right. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Eugene Cash. I'm the senior client relationship manager, or CAM, agent. So what I do is I help new dealerships transfer over to Evo and help iron out and set up best practices for those new dealerships. I've been with the Lightspeed for 6 years, starting in accounting support, and then helping train new support agents. If you ever met me in person, you'd look at me and you'd say I was an accountant. And so between that and the last name of Cash, I only had two possible careers. One would be accountant. The other one is country music singer, and I don't sing very well. So we'll go ahead and move on into the topic of the day, which is the big, scary end of year financial. Okay. And what we're going to try to do here is try to take some of the fear out of that to help you guys focus and get the good books that you need for your end of year. Okay. What we'll cover today is a step-by-step process to close out your fiscal year, review some recommended year-end reports, and address some common questions and tips managing situations that may arise. Okay. So the big question is why is year-end necessary? And the reason for that is to make sure your books are good and to be able to report your taxes accurately and not be scared of the IRS coming after you. So during this, what we're going to do during this process, what happens is your general ledger history for your current year, you're finalizing, becomes your previous year's data. Your profit and loss accounts, and those are the accounts from 40,000 up through 90,000 if you're using our general account ledger that we provide. Those accounts will then be zeroed out in preparation for the new year's data. Your balance sheet account balances are going to be forwarded to and become the beginning balance of your first month. And then all your accumulated current earning figures for the entire year are going to be added to the retained earnings GL account starting on the first day of the new year. So where to start? And that's really where things can get complicated, or not necessarily complicated, but it can feel overwhelming. But the first thing you want to do prior to completing your year-end process is you really want to finish up with your month-end process for the end of your fiscal year for that last month. And typically that's going to be December. So if you've been doing your month-end processes for the rest of the year, it's just another year. It's just another month end with an extra button push at the end. Okay. So we're going to go through the month-end procedures and deal with those, and then at the end we'll show you the extra step you need to do and some other tips for the year end. So the month end, things you need to do before completing your month end. All of your errors for your management activities need to be fixed and have a status of successful. How you can tell if that's already done or not is if you look at the bottom of your Evo, you'll see a green dot. If it's green, that means there's no errors. If it's red, it means there are errors, and you would want to take care of those. There's an article in Service Connect for handling your management activity errors, but where you would want to start with that is under management activity, management activities, and then if you uncheck the successful box, if there are errors, they will then display at this point, and then you can get some additional information on how to fix those. All your bank deposits must be processed. That's really important. If the bank deposits are not processed, you will not be able to complete your bank reconciliation for that month. Okay, so those bank deposits have to be processed. You need to verify all your clearing accounts. Those should be 0. Now, when we're talking for new dealerships, they have additional clearing accounts they may need to be working on, but the main one for most dealerships is going to be your end of day clearing account. That should be zeroed out at the end of each month, and realistically, it's something that's easier to handle on a day-to-day basis rather than an all at the end of the month basis. Then there are a couple of reports that you need to make sure that they're real time, and they need to be run on the last day of the month after business is completed. And that's the inventory valuation, the accounts receivable aging report, and the accounts payable aging report. These reports are time sensitive and they cannot be backdated. So if you miss your opportunity there's not a recourse. Moving forward, we're going to tackle the month end for each of the various departments. The first one being the month end checklist. Now, the month end checklist for parts. Now, parts, they say that the only required month end procedure for parts is reconciling to the general ledger, and that's a one sentence. That's a sentence that winds up being really challenging because, as you all know, parts reconciliation is one of the things you spend a lot of time on, and it can be really challenging. We did have a webinar for that on that specific topic. If you when the PowerPoint comes out, if you click where it says here and it's underlined, that will take you directly to Brian Tierney's wonderful parts reconciliation or parts inventory webinar that he did last month. Specifically, though, for our purposes, what we're talking about is how to reconcile parts to the general ledger, which again is using the management activity report inventory valuation. So if we go to management activity, inventory valuation, and then over at the side there, you would hit generate. And again, this is a time sensitive report. It's going to give you what the information of what your parts module is saying your parts value is. So if we take a look, it says parts in stock. That's what your parts module is telling you you have in there. In this case, $149,009.93. In addition to that, you have the parts that have been put on RO, and that gives you the value there, and then a total. If you're using inventory transfer, it's going to be the total. It's going to be the total column on the far right that you're going to want to reconcile your parts to. Now, the other topic I wanted to bring up here is scheduling reports. For scheduling your reports is an easy way to have these time-sensitive reports available without having to sit and wait until everybody's left for the day on that last day of the month. So from any report that can be scheduled, you're going to find a button up in the upper right section that says schedule. You'll select it. It will then come to the schedule report screen. You're going to schedule the time. All you're concerned about here is the time itself. So for example, I'll put in 11 p.m. and you want to put it in like this with the space or it will not save it. And then the report will then automatically run 11 p.m. You'll then choose your task repetition. In this case, if it's something you want to run on a monthly basis, you'll come down to month and put a dot in there on the day, and then you want to put in 31 days. That will then set up the report to run automatically at the end of the month, regardless of what that last day is, whether it's the 30th or the 28th or the 31st. You then hit OK, and your report is scheduled. Now, one thing to realize is that this scheduled report is only for the user. So whoever set up that report is the only one who will be able to retrieve it. It's not going to go to the rest of the databases or rest of the systems. To check and see what reports are scheduled, you can go to System, down to Lists, and then down to Scheduled Tasks. And it will then give you all the tasks that have been set up, all the reports that have been set up. As you can see, it says Inventory Valuation Report. It's also going to give you the date or the last run date and the next run date. So it's going to tell you when the next time it's going to run, and then for the store. Okay. How you retrieve that report is down at the bottom next to that green light is a blue cog. And on that blue cog, when you click on it, it will then list the report. It will say, and in where the title of it, for example, where it says 660 outstanding repair order deposits, it will have a parentheses scheduled next to it. That report will be available for seven days. So you can go into it at any time, and to retrieve the report, you would click on the blue hyperlink. That will then bring up the report, and then you can print it out or save it as normal. Okay. And we'll have additional instructions added to the PowerPoint when it's put up, just for later on. Okay. Okay. So that's the month-end procedures for parts and scheduling the reports. Again, for more information on that, you're going to want to go back to the webinar that Brian Tierney provided, and that will give you really great suggestions, and it was fantastic on what to do for your parts inventory maintenance and a yearly physical inventory update. Moving on to the service and sales modules. The only required month-end for service is reconciling your repair order deposits and your warranty receivables, and you'll do that through the two reports, 640 for the outstanding warranty claims, and 660 for the to reconcile your repair order deposits on month end. To go through to show those again, it's going to be under Sales, Customer Reports. Service, Customer Reports. For your deposits, it's going to be under Repair Order. And you want the 660 outstanding repair order deposit. And when you run that, you'll see the deposit total down here at the bottom. If you ever need to enlarge your reports, double click the orange area and that will fill the screen for you. Makes it easier to read. Okay. The other report is under Service, Customer Reports, and Warranty Claim. And you want the 640 report outstanding warranty claims. You'll choose detail, next, and then finish. And again, it will give you your total unresolved warranty claim amount in the far right at the bottom. Okay, and show you the specifics on all the open warranty claims that are still unresolved. Okay, for sales, there's not any specific requirement for the sales module. You do want to have your completed sales finalized to show so that your profit and loss is showing properly. The other, if you're needing some information on your major unit inventory and some specific information, there's an additional report, and it's found under General Ledger Reports, General Ledger Schedules, and that will allow you to look into any specific GL account and be able to determine, and then find the specific units under that account. I can show you that report also. Again, General Ledger, Reports, GL Schedules. You want to select major units like I have over here, and then you can select a single or multiple GL accounts to run. You'll hit Report, and then down at the bottom, you have your information, and it will give you your stock number, VIN number, the unit, other unit information, the type of unit, and then it will tell you what store, vendor, and what entries have been made, including freight, transfers. If there were parts or labor sold to it, it will list those out as well. Okay. Right. Now we're getting into some of the more accounting-based challenges or accounting-based parts of the month end, specifically in this case, accounts receivable. So there's a lot more steps with accounts receivable than there have been with the past two modules. The first thing you want to do is print a before aging report. You'll then want to allocate internal charges with a credit or a debit memo. And what that means specifically is if you have accounts receivable customers that are for sales or for service or for parts, you'll want to clear those customer accounts and with a memo, with a credit or a debit memo, and then offset the appropriate expense or move it or allocate it to whatever specific area that you want to on your general ledger, so that it's no longer in the accounts receivable. You'll want to calculate and apply your finance charges, add recurring charges to open item accounts, print your statements, and then apply the open credits to invoices for open item customers. Then archive your paid charges and print an additional aging report after you're done with that. Okay. So let's go through some of those you're probably familiar with. I wanted to talk about two of them that you may not be as familiar with. The first one is calculating finance charge. Now, for that to be done, you need to go to Systems, Preferences, and you're going to want to look under your accounting and then accounts receivable, and then you have your finance charge rate on this line here. In this case, it's 1.5%. That's an APR, so that's not going to calculate. That's not going to calculate perhaps the way you're thinking. It's going to be 1.5% divided by 12. Okay, so you'd go under receivables, calculate finance charge. And then this is where you can set up your parameters. For example, the open item age. So do you want to charge a late fee essentially for anything over 30 days for your open item customers, or 30 days for your balance forward customers? And then have a cutoff date. Once you have those parameters set, you hit calculate, and it's going to show all the customers that fall into that category and what the finance charge is going to be. Now, at this point, no finance charge has been applied yet. You can, if you've looked at them, if you've done this before and you're okay with the charges, you could hit the apply charges button in the top section. But you can also, if you have some customers that don't get charged, you can uncheck them and the charge won't be applied for those customers. Okay. The next part of it was recurring charges. If you have recurring charges set up for your customers, receivables, recurring charges, and in this case, there aren't any set up, but you can set them up. For example, if you have a charge that a customer gets on a regular basis, you can come in and set these up by selecting the customer and then selecting the parameters. One thing to note with this is your days. You have a recurring, it can either be days or months. My suggestion would be to make it days and usually between 20 and 25. The purpose of that being is the system will not allow you to create that recurring charge. If you've set it, for example, to 1 month, it's going to automatically stop you from being able to make the charge again for 30 days. So if you forget and do it towards the end of the month and then want to do it early for the next month, it won't let you do it. So that's why I suggest the days. Once those charges are set up, you can then apply them. And then for statements, I just wanted to walk through statements really quickly. If you go to receivables, it's reports. Your AR aging and your AR statements are right there. If we go to your statements, one thing that can be tricky is if your customer has a negative balance or a zero, but you still want to print out a statement for them. If you do not have this box checked, include zero and negative balances, it will not print out a statement for them. But ideally, you generate your statement. And then depending upon whether you have an email address for your customer or not, you can also email them the statement and not just print it out. Okay. The last thing I did want to talk about was after you've applied your items, one thing that you want to do is you want to archive your paid charges. You also want to do this after you've sent your statements, because if you archive the paid charges and even if something has not been applied to, if you archive the paid charges and then do the statements, anything that was open at that point or is still open is going to show up as previous month or previous charge rather than an itemized detail. And that can cause you don't want to have your customers reaching out to you. So you want to send your statements before you archive your paid charges, and you can set the date for your archive here. You usually want that to be the end of the month. So for example, the 30th, you would then after you set your date, you'd hit archive paid charges, and that's going to archive the charges for all of your customers. It will then also, for your balance forward, it'll apply the newest payment to the oldest item and put those into history. That also has the advantage of cleaning up your accounts receivable aging report as well. For accounts payable, there's basically two things you want to do. You want to add your recurring invoices and then print your aging report, and then use your aging report to reconcile your accounts payable to your vendor statements and your general ledger. Okay. So to start off with, for your recurring charges, if you go to payables, recurring charges, this one has some set up. If they're available, you put a check mark. if they're set up and they're not available, it goes back to that similar issue with the accounts receivable where the days where there not enough time has passed for the time frame for the days to be set up. But you put your check mark, you then hit the add invoice, and it will then create an unpaid invoice in your accounts payable vendor for those items. They'll then be available under payables and pay invoices to be paid. And that can save you some time if you have a payable invoice that you need to have set up every month, and that has the same price each time. The other part would be your accounts payable aging report. That's going to be under payables, AP aging. And again, this is one that I would stress that you want to have with the AR statements and with the inventory valuation. I would stress that you want to have this one available or have this one scheduled so that it's not something you forget. So again, payables, reports, and then AP aging. And then hit the report button. At the end of the report, it has your total. All right. Now, the last part of it is your general ledger, and this is where you're going to do a lot of some of your heavy lifting also. It says there's no required processes. However, some of the things you definitely want to make sure you get done is reconciling your bank account. You're going to want to go through the reconciliation reports for major units, accounts receivable and accounts payable. You're going to want to make sure that your deposit accounts are in balance, and then print out your trial balance, your balance sheet, and your profit and loss. Okay. For the reconciling the bank account, I know that can be challenging. And this goes back to earlier on when we were talking about having your deposits done and having your management activity errors cleared. Without those two things being done, what that's going to do, well, without the bank deposits having been done, you're not going to be able to reconcile your bank account correctly. You're going to be missing those deposits. It's going to be a real challenge for you. The other part, though, is if you have management activity errors, any management activity error that you have is an item that you think is closed, like a sales deal, repair order, or a parts invoice, but those items haven't hit your general ledger because there's an error. Once the error is fixed, it will apply those items the way they were supposed to be done, dated back to the time of the actual transaction. Okay, so if you have management activity errors that have been outstanding for a couple of months, they will backdate automatically. So let's go ahead and take a look then at some of the extra reports. For your reconciliation reports for major units, accounts receivable, and accounts payable, they're all in the same section. It's going to be under General Ledger, Reports, Reconciliation, and then AR subsidiary, AP subsidiary, and major unit subsidiary. You go into it, you run the report. Now, this is a test system, so they've been messing around with it and causing issues. But as you can, this is showing that there's some out of balance items in the accounts receivable. It's telling you what the account number is, the account description, the customer name, in this case at the top one, in industry favorite landing, and then what the difference is between the AR total and the GL total. Same with the one underneath it. It's 22,000. Brandon Creasy and what his AR total is versus his GL total. These are going to be fixed by doing some investigation and deciding where the error happened, and then the fix is typically doing a schedule adjusting journal entry, which is a special kind of journal entry you can use for a scheduled account like accounts payable, accounts receivable, and major units to put something back into balance. You do not want to use that for any other reason. The same report then is run for, again, for accounts payable and major units, and they will look similar. They're going to tell you the account number, the vendor, or the major unit stock number in that case, and then what it's out of balance by. That should be something that you that you do work on a monthly basis there. Okay. The next one are your customer deposits. Now we talked about the service one. The other two that you want to look at is parts, customer reports, and special order. And then at the top, it's the 560 report, special order customer deposits. And again, it will list all the special deposits and what the deposit balance is. And you'll compare that to the general ledger account. The other report is for sales. Sales, customer reports, leads, quotes, and deals. And you want the 714 deposit summary. And when that one's run, it will also show, it'll show all of the sales deals, the date they were started, and then your total deposits on the far side. And it will also differentiate between a trade deposit versus a cash or credit card or some sort of method of payment deposit. And again, you'll compare that to your the general ledger GL account for those deposits. Let me show you very quickly. We're going to go back to preferences, and we spend some time in preferences with month end, just validating some information. If you go to systems and preferences, and go to account under the accounting area, you go to accounting interfaces, you can see what some of the default, you can see a lot of your default GL accounts for certain areas. For example, special order deposits for this database is 32230 labeled special order deposits. So if we were comparing that report, we would want to go to look at the account 32230. Or if it's the major unit deposit for sales deals, it's 32210. Okay. So a lot of your default accounting interfaces, accounting GL account interfaces are here under the accounting interfaces section. Okay. The next reports, let's talk. I want to talk about the trial balance, the balance sheet, and the profit and loss. If you go under general ledger, chart of accounts, the first thing you want to do before running those reports is to recalculate your chart of accounts. Now, the nice thing is in the Evo system, that runs really quickly. In NXT, it was our older system, it could take a while. But this one, as you can see, is really nice and quick. And what that'll do is ensure that everything's been added up correctly, and so that your reports come out the way that they should. And then it's general ledger reports, trial balance, for example. Choose the fiscal year you want to do, and what month. And this report can be backdated, so this one can be done later on. You then run it. And what you're looking for is within the first couple of pages in the department at the consolidated level, and you're looking for the department totals. You're going to get your grand totals for your consolidated and whether it's in balance or not. If it's not in balance, there's a Service Connect document for some help with that, to give some guidance on how to fix it. If you're still having trouble, though, call support. We can help you out with it as well. If your trial balance is in balance, then you're good to go to run the next two, which is your balance sheet. And again, this one can be backdated. So you can run this again for your fiscal year and then choose the month, and it'll give that up to that month. You run the report, and it's going to give you your assets and then a total for your assets. Okay. And then it'll give your liabilities and owner's equity and what the total is for those as well. And those two should match. Your total assets should match your total liability and owner's equity on your balance sheet. The next report is your profit and loss. This has a lot of different functionalities to it. You can choose your month, and you can choose your report style. For a regular month end, I like to use selected month and year to date. That's the third option down. But you can also do selected month versus budgets. As you can see, just your monthly amounts, just your year to date. And then you can do some comparatives, last month versus last year, same month, and so on. But again, for a regular month end, I like the selected month and year to date. You run it, and you're going to get a 2-column. And again, it's going to divide up both between your consolidated normally and your various departments. What you're looking for is your consolidated at first, and it'll have your revenues, your cost of goods, as well as expenses, and then a total. And then net profit or loss after taxes. Okay. You can also with it ran this way, you can also see the departments. If you go to a selected department, let's say you just wanted to see your major unit new sales, you can select that from the drop down, and you could run it again, and it will just show you the department level. Again, this isn't one that's not getting a lot of use, so there's a lot of zeros there. So those are the reports you want to run. Most of those reports, all of the reports in here, can be run at any time. They're not time sensitive. Okay. If you've done all of that, though, your month end is complete. The next part, we'll actually can then go into the Lightspeed year-end part of it, which is going to be, this is the extra button push. You're going to want to run your general ledger year-end processing function. It says you only want to run it once per year after your fiscal year ends, the following day or later. But once you've run it, you can't run it again. So there's no worries about having it accidentally be an issue. Where you're going to find that is under General Ledger, Year-End Processing, and then it will show here. Now, if this were available to us, this run button up in the upper left corner would be available, and we could hit it, and it would then process the year end. The good news is you don't need to worry about this. Once you hit that button, it'll be over really quick. It's not going to disrupt workflow. Your people could still be working. You can run this at any time, even while the business is open and running at regular speed. Okay. For those of you who are on our old system, that was a challenge, and it wasn't something you wanted to do while people were available. This can be done at any time. And again, once you've done it the one time, that's it. It won't let you run it again. Now, here's the important things. Here's some of the burning questions I know some of you have out there. Once you hit that year-end button, can you do your journal entries? And the answer to that is yes. Journal entry postings can be done into the current fiscal year or the next fiscal year. So you can go up to a year in advance, but you can also backdate anything into the previous year as well. That's not going to affect anything. It will, as far as making a backdated journal entry will affect your profit and loss or your balance sheet as normal, but it's not going to cause any problems. The one thing you need to be aware of is under if there's a soft close for a particular month, you're not going to be able to backdate further than that. And I'll explain that right now. If we go under, we're going to go back to our favorite place, systems, and then preferences. And we're going to go down here under accounting to general ledger. You see the accounting close date. That accounting close date, in this case, is November 30th, 2023. What that means is if I was going to backdate something, I couldn't go back earlier than November 30th, 2023. But let's say you needed to. You can come in, you can change the date to say October 31st, save it, and then you could backdate a journal entry and make the change that you needed to and post that. And then come back change it again back to November 30th so that no one else could could backdate something without you being aware. Now, something to understand is anybody who has access to preferences is going to be able to do that. So if you don't want people, if you want to stop people from backdating, you need to go under security and restrict their preference access. So, and I'll go ahead and show you that too, because security can be quite challenging. There's a lot under security, so can ignore that. If we went into somebody, Austin Rich does not need to have access to preferences. We're going to go double click on him, and you're going to look for the same path that we went to get to it. So when this comes up in just a second, you're going to look under systems, and then you'll see an option for preferences. And if you don't want them to have it, uncheck the box, have them log out, and then log back in. And then that new security will take effect. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is at the beginning of the new fiscal year is when you'll see your tax rates change. And I just wanted to point that out where you can go to change your tax rates. So if we go under system, okay, I'll come back to this. If you go to systems, lists, and then tax categories, you'll see a listing of the various tax categories that are available. You'll want to select whichever tax category you need to change. For example, sales tax Tennessee. Double click, and then you can come in and edit your tax rate. So we can come in, we can hit edit, and let's say it went from 7% to 8%. We would just come in, put in 8, and then save it. And that will then take effect starting at that moment you make the change. You want to make sure to do that for all of your tax categories. If there's a tax change, frankly, visits from the IRS are not pleasant. And that's a silly reason to have one show up at your doorstep. The other part to get back to it, back to this preference, stopping someone from getting into preferences with Adam Rich, if we look under system, we're going to see the preference area. If you uncheck preferences, they will no longer have access to it. If you're going to take away preferences, though, you need to also take away security. Again, save it, and then you would have, in this case, Austin Rich would log out and then log back in, and the new security setting would take effect at that point. Okay. All right. And that is the end. I hope I didn't move too quickly, and I hope I didn't confuse anybody. But if you have any, we have some questions and people fielding questions. So we'll go ahead and turn time over now to the question and answer part of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eugene. Excellent information. I know we've got a lot of questions that have come in, a lot have been answered, but certainly a topic that everybody wants to make sure they're doing the right way. So appreciate all of that. I was just going to add that I know we've had a lot of questions. The entire recording today, Eugene's PowerPoint, and then a Q&A document will be sent out to everybody following today's webinar. So you'll get access to all that information. But I know that we've had a team out there answering a lot of questions, and maybe we just want to address a few of those and see if there's some kind of key areas that people are asking about. I think, Eugene, you might have touched on one of these, but I did see that people were asking about, you're waiting for adjusting entries from your accountant. What's the
Yes.
best way to handle that?
Again, I would go forward and run the fiscal year end process. And then once you receive your accounting entries from your accountant, he'll want those dated for December 31st. Typically, let's say your fiscal year ends on at the calendar year. You would then go to go back. You would do it just as a regular journal entry, general ledger journal entry. Press new, and then backdate it. So let's say it was 11:30. We'd backdate it. Now again, with that soft close, because I put it back to 11:30, you'll notice that the date is turned red on you. That's because of that preference. So this is a good example of, we would hit cancel. We're going to go into system, preferences, and here we are at the accounting, the general ledger part of it already. We're going to make that change. We're going to change the date back to October 31st. Save it. And then go back to general ledger, journal entry, hit new, and we may actually have to close that and reopen it as well. But we'll take a look. Going to go to November the 30th. Yeah, we'll have to close it. Close your journal entry and reopen it. I was just hoping to avoid that. I have too many things open at the side. It's
Well,
a
and I
good
think
habit to
that's,
get rid of those
yeah.
closed out.
Yeah, but I think that's good, Eugene, just to show you
Okay.
that navigation and the process and, kind of what the accountant would prefer for the dates. That's very helpful. So
Good.
I think that's excellent. I don't know, Jay and Brian, if there were other kind of key areas that you saw a lot of questions on that we might want to address. Maybe we have time for one or more.
I got one question that came through, but I think Eugene touched on it, and I'll just read it off and you can speak to it, but I think you did touch on it. And the question was, do I need to wait till the final transaction is completed on the last day of the year before I complete my year end?
I don't know that I touched on that specifically. But no, you can do the year-end process. You can do the year-end process before the last transactions, because you're going to wind up, invariably, you're going to wind up having things from your accountant that's going to happen after the year end. So you can run the year-end process as normal, and then backdate any journal entries or any items that you need to.
Excellent. That helps a lot. I mean, because I think that were some of the questions that people had before too. So
Right.
appreciate it. Well, we have one more slide, so I'm going to have you come back to slides. I know there's a ton of questions that were out there. I said, but be reassured, we're going to get you all those questions and answers in a document. And the one thing that we do want to just make sure we get to today too is we, on the next slide, we have our winner for our slides, or for attending today. And through a random drawing, our winner today is Dina Lane. And Dina, I will be in touch with you to make sure we have the right address so I can get you your gift from Lightspeed. So with that, I think we want to just thank you, Jean, for an awesome presentation. Thanks everybody for attending and taking time to learn more about the Lightspeed year-end process. Appreciate it. And then look for our follow-up messages coming to you tomorrow. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.